Hi guys, welcome back to your Not So Ordinary Scrapbook channel. I noticed in the last video, when I was trying to find a thumbnail, that I didn't really show all of this scrapbook page that I made. Hopefully you can see it now. I am not a professional camera person, so it's never going to be perfect, and I just have to be satisfied with that, because I don't have the time or the money to invest in a decent camera. It's got to be my phone, and I don't have the time to learn how to do all the things that YouTubers do. So, like I said in the last video, I'm going to stamp the back of this, and we're going to see what we can do with it. I think I was going to look for some photos of that trip that my son took with my mom and my grandma, my mom and dad and grandma, when they went to Chicago. But I have not dug those out yet. So I think what I'm going to do is just stamp this page, get it ready, set it aside, and then do a different page. So, and that's what this, using the same page kit anyway, that I put together and I showed you last time. So, the ink that we're going to use is Nautical Blue, Memento Dewdrop, and Elderberry Memento Dewdrop. And there's no rhyme or reason why I'm using that. It's just the one I want to use. So, today has been crazy. I'm just going to tell you that right now. It has been absolutely insane. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that because I think we put too much pressure on ourselves to do too much. And I think it results in problems that we have, like oh yeah, I like that, Illinois. It's purple. So I'm going to do some purple, and then I'm going to do some blue. So my main topic for today is going to be self-reflection, because one of the things that we talked about a lot when I was in grad school in terms of education was self-reflection. You know, our goal is always to be empathetic with students, and I'm not a teacher, but I am a developmental therapist. So not only am I coaching parents or I guess I said that backwards. Not only am I working with children on their IFSP goals, I am also coaching parents, is what I meant to say. And you have to learn to be very intentional. And prior to this position, I don't think that I was very intentional. I was intentional when it came to school. I did very well in college and in grad school. Grades were really important to me, probably too important. in some aspects, but I had the mindset that your grades reflect how much you know and your dedication and hard work. Some people may say that they disagree with that, and that's fine. And I know people who are in college right now who work their tails off, who have families, who are juggling it all, full-time jobs, families, and school. And their grades are not reflecting the hard work that they put into it. But and I'm not saying that, you know, they're not working every bit as hard as people who get good grades do, because, you know, some people are working against a lot. You know, some people have like ADHD and different things that can prevent them from focusing on what needs to be focused on. And, you know, and sometimes busyness can do that too. Well, today was one of those really super busy days. And it got me thinking when I was on my way to one of my clients' house this morning. About something. Usually I sit in silence as I drive to my client's house. I've learned to become very intentional. I use the time that it takes to drive. Usually I see a lot of kids in small towns in our general, within a 4-county vicinity that is in my CVC that I work for. And so I have to drive quite often. Some drives are not so long. When I have to drive to St. Joe's, it's really only like 27 miles away. But when I have to drive to Havana, it's over an hour. And so I don't turn on the radio. I just sit in silence and just think about what I'm going to do when I get there. Intentionally, the night before, I will go over the child's IFSP again. I'll think about their goals, jot down some ideas of things that we can work on to hopefully make an impact on mastering some of these goals. But it's all pretty much trial and error. You just never know how a child's going to respond to something until you try it. You may think a child is ready for something and they're not. You may think a child is not ready for something and they are. You just got to try different things and see if it works or not. So one thing that I have found is that parents who are involved in their child's therapy, those children progress far better than children whose parents do not participate in the session. So it really makes a big difference. And one of the reasons why is because the parent is the child's favorite person. And when they see their parent facilitating things that I basically coach them. I'm basically coaching myself out of a job is what I'm doing. You coach the parent to work with the child. And we model that by playing with the child and working with the child on these skills so the parent can learn and replicate what we're doing with the child. So, and ask questions, and we can give them feedback, and we do the research if they have any questions that we don't have answers to. We will research them. That is up on something, and so I'm going to have to cover that up because that's a boo-boo. But there's nothing I can do about it. So this morning, I was on my way to a client's house, and I'm thinking, you know, of all the things, and we had Corbin and Esme dropped off at 5 a.m. this morning. Those two are now a mess because that's not working now. Okay, sometimes when you stamp, and if you're like me and not very good at it, like not a pro, which I'm not, you will have mess ups. And that kind of determines how your layout's going to go, or what direction you're going to put your pictures or mats or stickers, or, you know, because you always want to cover up the boo-boos. And trust me, with how many years I've been scrapbooking, I've made some huge boo-boos. One of my major ones that I will never forget, and this was like, probably 15 years ago, this one happened. I was sorting through my embellishments on the kitchen table. And so I was putting them in different categories because I thought that would be the best idea. And so I'm doing that. And I had a drink on the table, and you could probably imagine what is coming. That drink got tipped over all over my embellishments. A big portion of my embellishments. And I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I just, you know, I can throw them out or I can lay them out to dry. So, being the frugal person that I am, I decided that I would dry them out. So I laid paper towels on the table. All the ones that were wet, I just laid them out. And they kind of got like a tea dye effect to them. I used glitter to cover up different areas that could not be fixed by drying it out, you know, to, like, if there was like some ink discoloration or something on it. And I just worked with what I had and salvaged every single one. I don't think that I ended up throwing out anything. But sometimes that's all you can do, is just kind of salvage what you got and kind of work from there. So I was thinking on the way, and, you know, I kind of had the day laid out as it was, because usually what I'll do is the night before I'll look at their IFSP, think about what we did in the last session, what worked, what didn't work, think about what skills I want to work on. I kind of jot those down, and then I go through my toys, and then I pick out the skills we can work on their IFSP using the different toys that I have. And one of the benefits of working for the state, and I work within a group of developmental therapists. I have my own clients and they have their own clients, but we get together periodically and we discuss our cases and we gain insight, and it's helpful, especially for someone like me who's just starting out, to talk to other therapists who have been doing it quite a long time. And so that always works out well. Because you can't know everything, and there's no way that even one thing that one of the developmental therapists that I back in December, when I was just kind of shadowing before I applied for my credential or whatever, I knew that if I obtained my credential for the state and all that was approved, that I would be hired by this group of developmental therapists that work for the state. In December, I knew this. So I shadowed this one girl, and for about a week, and I just kind of watched what she did and took note and that kind of stuff. And one of the questions that I asked her, I said, I was talking about going to grad school and like what I learned, some of the things I learned in grad school and how that applied to developmental therapy, because I had originally gone to school to become a special education teacher. I didn't have an intention to do this. And so I really didn't know too much about early intervention, because that wasn't my goal when I went to grad school. So I had all these questions, and I asked her, and she goes, I'm going to tell you something right now. She said, you can forget about everything you learned in college. She said, because you're not going to use any of it. She said, this is completely different than what you learned, anything that you learned in college. She said, the textbook says it one way. The reality of it is, it doesn't work that way. And I was like, oh, okay. And to some extent, she's right. Hands-on, you learn a whole lot more about doing what you're doing than, any textbook that can teach you. Of course, there are things that I do use, especially, there's a specific language that is used when writing reports, pertaining to special education. There are terms that we use, that probably, a lot of people are unfamiliar with, unless they're familiar with the field. And those are things I'm very grateful knowing. Like, I learned a lot about, that kind of stuff. Acronyms that are commonly used. That sort of stuff. I feel like I'm really messing up this page. So, I was thinking about what I was going to do on the way to see this first client. Thinking about the activities and what toys I packed and what we were going to do first, questions I was going to ask the mom, different ways that I can engage with the mom, and all that stuff on the way. And then I got to thinking of my last video that I posted. And I got to thinking of how crazy, like early this morning, my day had already been before I even saw any clients. And how crazy it has been since I got out of the hospital. And then I got to thinking about other people and how, like, we're human. And so we are carrying around everything day to day, you know, that we carry a lot of baggage throughout the day is what I'm saying. And unless we tell people about that baggage, they don't know. There's no way they can know, you know. And when I see clients, or, well, kids and adults, honestly, depending on their sensory sensitivities, I have to be intentional on how I speak, communicate, implement activities. You just always have to be intentional with all that stuff, because if I see that a child has a sensory sensitivity and maybe I'm talking loud, you know, it just suddenly comes to my head, oh, you need to quiet your voice. You know, it's not really coming natural yet, because it's not something that I just automatically do. I really do have to think about it right now, and it'll probably come to me a little bit better. But, you know, as I work here longer and, you know, all that stuff. But I think it's something that develops over time when you work with people or children. And I think I just knocked my stamp set on the ground. And especially parents, you have to be really careful about, you have to kind of like be an intuitive person to begin with, to figure out what kind of communication style the parent has. And so you can always be aligned with, you know, with their way of thinking and not your own. So, so I spend a lot of time thinking about being intentional and planning, and I've always been a planner anyway. I mean, I'm not always that great in following those plans, or every plan exactly to a T. I do use a planner. And generally by the end of the week, everything on the plan gets done. But I will divide it out in days, and then a lot of times, like, if it doesn't get done on one day, I move it to the next day. And if it doesn't get done that day, it gets moved to the next day. And then sometimes I'll just put it on the side of the planner and say, sometime this week, this has to get done. You know, just that kind of stuff. And if it doesn't get done that week, then it goes on the next week. You know, it's just kind of something that I do. Okay, so this is how this page turned out. It's not perfect. I'm probably going to put a photo or something here to cover up this. Probably something in the middle to cover up that. Probably something here to cover up that. But that is my Chicago stamping homemade pattern paper. And it didn't bleed through because this is pretty thick cardstock. So I'm going to let this dry. I'm going to work on a different page. Let's see what pictures I want to work on. So I'm thinking like on the way to this client's house. And I'm thinking about this video, my last video. And I'm thinking about, you know, how I got fired and all that stuff from my job, my other job. And, you know, I just was thinking about that whole day. Like what happened that day, you know, all that stuff. And although when I think about it, I don't think that it was right. I still stand firm about this. It was not right for them to fire me and tell me it was because of not checking the grandpa's ID. Because that is not, it's not what happened. I mean, there was no reason to check the grandpa's ID because he picked her up before. But when I thought about it really hard, I thought, you know, you weren't really nice. You weren't really that nice to the mom when she came to pick up her daughter and her daughter was already gone. You know, I was thinking about that interaction with that mom and how mom was mad. She came in, you know, she was like mad that she had to go get her daughter at the grandpa's house. She was mad at me because I let him go or let her go with her grandpa. And even though I didn't know she wasn't supposed to go with her grandpa, no one told me that. She was mad about it, you know, and I thought about, okay, I tried to put myself in her shoes. Like, what would she have been feeling? Like, if you were at odds with your husband or ex-husband and his side of the family, or you were going through an ugly situation, like an ugly divorce or separation or whatever, and you had agreed upon picking up your child at the after-school program, and then finding out that your child's not there, and whether she communicated with the office and they didn't tell anybody, or whether she communicated with, or she didn't communicate with grandpa, you know, or maybe she talked to her ex and, or her, whatever. I don't know their marital situation, but it doesn't sound very good. Whatever the situation was, I'm sure that was very stressful for her. You know, having to go over to a place that you don't want to go, having to deal with something that maybe you don't want to deal with. And then, you know, I had to put myself in her shoes. And then I thought about how I responded to her anger. And that day, when I think back to that day that all this happened, 2 days before I lost my job there, we have been watching Corbin and Kaysen sometimes and Esme sometimes because Jordan's mom had cancer surgery. So it's been like 5 a.m. Like most days, it's been 5 a.m. that Hunter has had to be to work, and he drops him off at like 4 a.m. So that's when our day started, was 4 a.m. So that is like super early in the morning. And on days that I have clients, Scott usually lets me sleep an hour or two later, and he gets up with the kids. So on this particular day, they were dropped off early. We did have Kason. Kason is a handful sometimes in the morning, especially if they don't go back to bed. That was a day that I saw clients, and Scott let me sleep in until 7. I got up at 7. I let Scott go back to bed. I got ready. I woke him up, got ready, was out the door, went to see my clients that day, had to rush back because I was taking a class. It was actually the 4th session in one of the classes that I took. My last one ended today, so that was really nice. But, so there was that. And then, and that lasted until, I want to say 2:30. And then I had to race to work to be there by 4 o'clock. And then work until 6. And that was the end of, like, it was very close to 6 o'clock when this situation happened because there was only 2 kids left. And so I was dang tired. Like, I was so tired. And then to have to deal with a parent who was screaming at me because the communication was broken between whoever was supposed to, whether it be the office and us, whether it be her and her husband, whatever, the grandpa or whatever. That is, I mean, that's how it was. Like, there was definitely broken communication. And at that moment, like I said, she was only there for about 3 minutes. At that moment in time, I was not very empathetic with her. And I was kind of rude, to be honest. I said, I don't know what you expect me to do about it. And she was hollering at me that she didn't want to go over there and get her or whatever. She wasn't, And I was like, I don't know what you expect me to do about it. I said, you're just going to have to do it. Like, what can I do about it? There was nothing I could do about it. But the way that I said it probably wasn't very nice. And she probably, now I don't know what she complained to my boss about because, like I said, I didn't get along with my one boss. The other boss was there, but she was kind of like not involved in it. I mean, she just kind of listened mostly. The other boss wasn't there that night, but her daughter was. And let's just say this. We had never seen this woman before, and neither one of us knew who she was when she came to the door. Neither her daughter nor I knew who she was because she had never picked up this girl before. So I'm guessing, and this is only guessing, I do not know if this is accurate or not. This is my guess. Because I had only ever seen Dad and Grandpa pick her up, is that Dad has custody of her, is what I'm guessing. And this was Mom's weekend, and Mom got ticked off because she had to go pick her up at a place that she didn't want to go. And I could have been way more gentle with her than I was, because she ended up like storming out of there. And although I didn't really think anything of it, because I was just like, I don't know what she expects me to do about it. Like, what can I do about it? You know, it's just something she's going to have to deal with, because A, I'm not the one who screwed up on the communication, and B, I was just doing my job, you know. I was just following what I always did, you know. If someone comes and picks up a kid who has picked up the kid numerous times before, and they're on the list and they sign them out, the kid goes with that person. I mean, it's like, it's, you know, if no one tells you that someone that you've never met before is going to pick up a child, how are you going to know that? There's no way for me to know that. But I could have been a lot nicer, and I could have been kinder to her. So had they talked to me, had my boss talked to me about that and said, you know, she complained because you were really rude to her or whatever, and we have to let you go or whatever, I would have said, you know, hindsight is 20/20, of course, but like, I would have come to the realization that I understood, because honestly, I didn't remember being that rude to her until today, when I was on my way to my client's house, and I was like, wow, I was really rude to her. And my boss never said that when I was in the meeting with her. She just said that they never mentioned me being rude, but they just said that I didn't check the grandpa's ID. And I was like, why would I check the grandpa's ID? He's picked her up numerous times before. I mean, it just didn't make sense. So I don't know why they used that example, unless being rude to someone isn't like something that you get fired for, and they just wanted to get rid of me basically because I didn't like, you know, I didn't get along with the one lady. But I don't know, and I will never know. But I was thinking about that, and I thought, you know, you are partially to blame for getting fired, because you were actually not very nice to that woman. And imagine being a mom who is going through a nasty divorce, or who does not get along with her in-laws or whatever the problem is, and having to go there to get your child and see that person and communicate with that person. And that would not be something that I would really want to do. And I get that. I mean, I don't think it was right for her to come in and start yelling at me, because how was I to know? I mean, I didn't know. There was no way for me to know. But let me put this one here. Okay, so we were at Sugar Creek Nature Preserve. This was part of our homeschool group when the kids were little. 2 different families. We were the originals. This is the original homeschool group. And then it got way too big. This middle girl, her church, people from her church wanted to start bringing their kids to our group. We liked it like this size, especially her and I, Cindy and I. We liked that our group was small and we could do things and just have like this intimate like group of 3. And our kids all played well together. There was no issues or anything like that. And And it just was a really good homeschool group. And we basically built it from scratch, us three. But this middle girl, she attends or back then she attended a very large church in town. And she asked us if it would be okay if like one more family would join us. And that was fine. And she brought in like, probably 4 more families. And that was fine. Like the 4 more families were fine because they all homeschooled. But then she started inviting in people from church who had kids who went to public school. And then the time of our homeschool group changed till after school, so these kids that went to public school could join in. Well, the problem is that some of the bigger kids were picking on the little kids. And it just turned into something that there was bullying going on, and parents weren't doing anything. Parents weren't watching the kids. That was another thing. Some of the newer families, they would just stand around talking and let their kids play, and their kids were the ones that were doing the bullying. So if you said something to them about their child bullying, they weren't paying attention, so they wouldn't do anything about it because they were talking. And as it happens, my kids were 2 of the kids that were bullied. So some of the kids just were nasty. Like Ethan was only 5. I think he was 5 in this picture. And Hunter would have been 7 in this picture. So 7 and 5. I don't even know if he was 5. I think he may have been 4. I think he was like preschool, and Hunter was 6 in this picture. So this is how old they were when we first started. So Ethan was 4, Hunter was 6. So Hunter was like kindergarten age. Ethan was preschool. And all of our kids were just about the same age. They were around the same age. But then all these other kids started coming that were much older. And it wasn't so much that they weren't homeschooled. It was that their parents weren't watching them. And their parents weren't doing anything when they were mean. And I know Ethan must have been 6 or 7. And we were playing at Kickapoo Park. And the parents of some of these kids weren't paying attention. And Ethan would go up to groups of kids and he's like, I want to play. Can I play? And they would say, no, you can't play with us. We're playing by ourselves. So Ethan is kind of shy. He's always been kind of quiet. So then he would come by me and he was very sensitive. So then he'd be crying and I'd ask him what's wrong. And he would say, no one wants to play with me. And so then I talked to Hunter because Hunter is more outgoing. Hunter has always been like, everybody's always liked Hunter. He just has that kind of outgoing personality where, everybody wants Hunter on their team, and everybody wants to hang out with Hunter, and so I asked Hunter, I said, what's going on? How come? And he said, everyone keeps telling Ethan that they have enough people playing with them and they don't want to play with them. And I said, what about your group? And he said, well, he can play with our group, but he doesn't want to. He wants to play with these other kids. And so, and then Hunter was starting to get a little chubby there. He wasn't fat by any means at this point. He just wasn't overweight. But he was, gosh, he was 7 or 8. He was just maybe he was a little bit on the chubby side, but like, he was a kid. He was a grown kid. You know, it's not that, wasn't anything like to be concerned about. But this one kid in our homeschool group, they told another kid that in front of Hunter that he would pay him a dime to call Hunter a fatso. And so the kid's like calling Hunter a fatso. And that did not go over very well with me because Hunter came to me crying, and the boy who actually called him a fatso, his sister tattled on him to their mom. And so that mom did something. She said, you apologize to him right now. But the kid who said he would pay him a dime to call him that, the mom did absolutely nothing. Nothing. Like absolutely nothing. And I was like, what is wrong with you? Like, you can't tell your child to apologize for that. That was just like pure meanness. It was awful. And, you know, and then I was just like, I talked to these two moms and I'm like, you know, I don't know if I want to continue with this group not because, you know, I was already just feeling like there's too many kids. No one's being watched. Kids are just doing whatever they want and saying things or being mean, and my kids are getting bullied. Why do I want to spend my time to take them here to just so they can be bullied? You know, that just doesn't make sense to me. Why are we taking time out of our schedule to do this extracurricular thing that's supposed to like promote socialization when people are just making them feel bad about themselves? That's just like, it just didn't make sense to me. So we stopped going. We still hung out with her. We would do sleepovers. Her kids would spend the night at my house. My kids would spend the night at her house. And that continued on. But this mom, I don't know whatever happened to her. I don't know if they moved away. I mean, I guess they didn't move away because I've seen her kids. I think the last time I seen their son is an adult now. All the kids are adults now. But I guess the last time I saw him was at the coffee shop. He worked at the coffee shop in town, and I was in there with a friend of mine having coffee, and she said, do you recognize that kid? And I said, no. And she said, that's so-and-so. And I'm like, oh, really? I'm like, oh. And he waved at me. He remembered me. But yeah, we just didn't ever go back to that group because it was like, one of the reasons why I homeschool is because of bullying. I didn't want my kids to have to deal with that. You know? I was bullied a little bit in school. Not as bad as my husband was. My husband was tortured in school. Like, they really treated him badly in school for no reason other than the fact that he had an overbite and his brother was disabled. Which apparently that is like a red flag for kids who pick on other kids. So, I'm going to put Mud Buddies down here because, okay, so this is at a nature preserve and the kids were all walking around. We went on a walking trail. We hiked for about an hour or something. We came back and then there was like this big giant, like, I don't know if you really can't see it right here, but there was like this big giant mud puddle, like, or maybe it was a creek. I don't know. It was either a creek or a mud puddle, but all the kids, like every single one of these kids was jumping in the creek, and they were soaked. Like, they got soaked. So I took a picture of my kids all soaked. I think I have pictures of their kids too, and I've given them pictures of their kids that I took, because I think I was the only one who had a camera that day. But yeah, so they were soaked from, and they had the most fun. This group of kids was covered in mud, and they had so much fun splashing in the mud, and we just let them, or in the creek or whatever it was. But they were all covered in mud, that's for sure. Especially him. He had it all over his face. He has mud on his face. But we were talking and we were laughing that, you know, what's better than being a boy and being able to like splash in the mud and no one yelling at you to like get out of the mud. It was a really good day. It was really a fun homeschool day. But that was one of the reasons Scott actually was for me homeschooling, because he didn't want our kids picked on the way he was. He was really, people were mean back when I was a kid and he was a kid. I mean, you want to talk about bullies. I mean, I don't know how kids are now, so I probably shouldn't speculate. I mean, bullying is always going to be something that I think just never goes away. But I do think that kids today are kinder to kids with disabilities than they used to be, because I feel so sorry for Scott. Like, his brother had a disability, and a cognitive disability, and like, kids were always calling him the R word, and they were calling Scott that because of his brother, and just like, and my husband happens to have an overbite, which, you know, let's just add an overbite into the picture, because something that makes you look a little bit different, and then we'll pick on that too. You know, it was pretty torturous for him. He hated school so much. And he didn't do good in school either. And I think part of the reason why is because he hated it so much. And sometimes the teachers are partially to blame because they don't do anything about it. They'll see bullying going on, and then they won't, you know, they won't do anything about it. And I think that that's the case where Scott got a bad attitude towards school, because teachers weren't standing up for him when they should have. I'll put a green one there. All right, let's look for letter stickers. But when I was a kid, the only things that I can think of that I was made fun of was, my dad was a cop. And for some reason, when we moved out in the country, now I don't know why this is, because I was in second grade, so I didn't know. But I didn't know that people called cops pigs. I didn't know that term because I was in the second grade. But I had to ride the school bus for the first time, and kids would come up to me and say, "Your dad's a pig." And I'd start crying because I was very sensitive, and I'd say, "My dad is not a pig." And so that just made it worse, you know, compounded it, you know, when they know that they can get you crying over something. So they picked on me for that. And then when I was in third grade, I always think that it's fourth grade, but it actually was third grade. We were in a really bad car accident. My mom fell asleep at the wheel, and she was going up. We lived on a hill, and she had made it all the way home. But I think I want the smaller one. she had made it all the way home, and she started up our hill and she fell asleep. And she hit a tree on the road up to our house. And she was going, like, she had hit the gas. So while she was asleep. So we hit the tree hard. And back then, it was like 1975. We didn't wear seatbelts. You know, it wasn't anything that was against the law if you didn't wear a seatbelt. I don't even know if we had seatbelts, because I remember a time when my dad would cut them out of the car. No, I thought about Mud Buds. I could make this 8 into a B. Oh, there is a B. B-U. I need a D. There's nothing I can really make a D out of. If I had an O, I could make a D. There's nothing I can make a D out of here. I mean, unless I did this backwards, upside down. But there's no S. Unless I'm going to have to use little letters, I think. So anyways, we were in a bad car accident. We got hurt really bad, and we all were hurt really bad. I bounced all over the car, and Mom said that I was probably, aside from her, she almost died because her leg was caught on the dash of the car, or the steering, like all the mechanisms just like smashed in, and there was like metal in her leg, and she ripped it out to get out of the car, because she ended up running all the way to our house, because like I said, she was on the street or the road to our house. And she ended up calling the sheriff's department because my dad, like I said, was a cop. And she said, I need an ambulance, and tell my husband that we've been in a bad accident on our road. And so the ambulance came. But had she not ran up to the house and called, God only knows when someone would have found us, because we were out in the country. We didn't really have any neighbors close to us. You know, maybe a quarter mile away, but no one's going to know. Late at night. It was late at night. We could have been sitting there for hours. Who knows how long. So my mom actually saved our lives. But it took me a really long time to walk and run again. That was probably what took the longest. And I still wonder, with all my like aches and pains and joint issues and all that stuff, if that is a result of that accident, you know, because I was so banged up. But I remember going into 4th grade. I missed a ton of school in 3rd grade. Just a ton of school. But my grades were good enough before the accident that they just kind of like, I remember doing homework at home, like when I got out of the hospital, and I was like learning to like run and walk again and all that stuff. I remember doing homework at home, so I must have still had to do homework. I mean, cognitively, I was fine, I believe. I don't remember, like, not being able to think straight. It was mostly orthopedic issues. I remember laying in bed and forgetting, like, that I couldn't walk, and like trying to get up to use the bathroom and like not being able to, like like all of a sudden it hitting me, like I would fall to the floor. Like I would like get ready to get out of bed, and then I'd like fall to the floor, and then it would hit me that, oh, you can't walk. Or you can't walk without crutches or whatever. You know, it was like, it was weird. It's weird how your mind forgets that kind of stuff when you're sleeping. But so in the 4th grade, I still couldn't run. I could walk, but I couldn't run. And so kids would really pick on me, especially some of the boys. That, you know, there was a girl in my class, I remember in 4th grade, that had cerebral palsy, and she couldn't run. And I remember the boys, she got picked on a lot because she had that disability by some of the mean kids in our class. And she was a friend of mine. She actually lived down the road from me, not too far, and I would ride my bike over to her house before and after the accident, after I was able to use my legs again. But I remember going to school and mean kids in my class saying, like, now you're like her, you know, now or you're never going to be able to run again because you're like her, you know. And I was like, that, you know, I knew even then that was horrible. But then, you know, you're a little kid, you know, you're in 4th grade and you're thinking, what if I'll never be able to run, and I won't be able to, you know, be normal again or whatever. And that's hard to accept. But and then there were other things, you know, all medical, you know, like I had a pointy nose that like some kids on the bus, not very many. I don't remember getting picked on for my nose too much. I mean, sometimes, I guess. Same mean kids on the bus. Bus kids are mean. But they'd say, you have a ski jump nose. Or I'm gonna, and we skied, like most of the people in my town. We had a ski hill not far from our house. So, like, most of the kids in our neighborhood, well, it wasn't a neighborhood, but in our rural community, skied at the ski hill. And so, like, that was a funny thing to say, considering we all skied, and, like, my nose looked like a ski jump, apparently. You know, that was something to pick on me about. But I was never tortured to the extent where people were tripping me and, you know, beating me up and, you know, just being awful like they were to my husband. So it was one reason why we homeschooled. And, like, I don't know. I guess I just went on a 20-minute tangent on something that isn't even related to what I was talking about to begin with. But that's kind of me. I'm just kind of a squirrel. But I never was picked on in high school. I don't know. Once our grade school went up to 8th grade, and like once I went to high school, I don't remember ever being picked on by anyone. Thank God. Mostly grade school. And mostly boys. And, well, actually, that's not true. In high school, I did have some girls after me because I supposedly I don't know. I had a lot of friends in high school that were guys. And if a girl was dating the guy, you know, it was always like, you know, you're after him and blah, blah, blah. And then a lot of times I had a boyfriend during that time. So I'm like, why would I be after him? Because I have a boyfriend. You know, he's just a friend. And they're like, I see the way you look at him, blah, blah, blah. So, but I think that that's like not unusual. I think that that's something that happens a lot in high school is girls get defensive over their boyfriends. I'm sure if my boyfriends, you know, were like that, or if my boyfriends were flirting with a girl, I'd be upset too. But of course, the only boys that I dated in high school cheated on me numerous times. So, I don't really have like a good track record of like having a boyfriend that was actually that into me that they didn't want to have a few on the side. Okay. So I think this is almost done, but I do want to journal. So I think I'm going to find a journal card that might work with this, with my Project Life card. So I'm just going to go through and see if I can find one that works for this. And then just be done with this one. So anyways, today was nuts because Esme was here this morning with Corbin at 5 a.m. I had to see clients today, so Scott let me sleep till 7, as usual. I got up. I let him sleep until 9:30. And then, so he had 2 hours. Then I had to leave to see clients. Saw clients. My last one ran late. And as I was driving home from my last client, I looked at the time and I was like, crap, I'm going to be late for this course. My very last session of this course that I was taking, and you can't miss like any of it in order to complete it. And I'm like racing the clock trying to get home without speeding. And so like I get home, run in the door, turn on my laptop, log in to Zoom, and I just made it. Like I was late by like 2 minutes, but nobody noticed. But I was like pretty worn out. So it was just like one thing after the other. And so many times I forget to eat, like when on days like this, because I'm like going from one thing to the next and just like not even thinking about like, okay, you need to stop and eat something. Or, oh, this would be cute. Life is full of adventure. I like that one. Okay, we'll use that. But then we need to add some yellow in. So I think I'm just going to put this, lift this up a little bit if I can without ripping it. I guess it doesn't matter if it rips a little bit. So one thing about using this glue stick, when it's down, it's down. So I'm going to put this one like right here. And then Scott informed me before he left for work. I told him, I said, are you sure you want to go to work today? Because that was another thing that I was thinking about. when Scott was fired from his last job, he's worked for this place for a while now, but he works with heavy equipment. Like, he loads these big giant dies onto these machines using a forklift. So, like, I mean, if there was an accident, he could really get hurt, like, doing his job. He really could get hurt. And people, there have been, like, fatalities at this place before. Not in years and years, but there have been people who died in years past working at this company before. Just because it is so dangerous. You know, these big heavy dies weigh like hundreds of pounds. I couldn't even tell you. Maybe even 1,000 pounds. I don't even know. But they're really heavy. And, so I worry about his safety when he's really tired. And I knew that he only had like 2 hours, not even 2 hours to sleep before I left to go see clients. So, you know, and then the kids didn't sleep. And we thought we were going to be done because she had spring break last week. So we didn't have them at all last week. Well, when we saw her mom yesterday at the birthday party, it was one of our grandchildren's birthday party. I thought she was going to say, oh, well, I can watch them again because I'm better, you know. And I know that she had a doctor's appointment today to check on, like, her healing from her surgery, her cancer surgery. And, but nothing was said. And I didn't ask about it. I was just like, and Hunter's like, we have Esme again. So we're going to drop both of them off at 5 tomorrow. And I was like, okay, you know, and I'm thinking I need to ask them how long this is going to be because this is like killing both of us. You know, I really think that if I hadn't have been watching them, that probably wouldn't have happened and I probably wouldn't have lost my job. So in a sense, by saving them money so they didn't have to get a babysitter during this time, I lost money because I lost my job. And so it was like, what do? You know, it's like, okay, so was it worth it to lose my job so they didn't have to pay a childcare place to watch their kid or their kids, which I know they can't afford. I mean, that's a lot of the time they have Kaysen, and that's expensive, or that's, you know, it's expensive for Corbin alone, but then a lot of time they have Esme. So then they'd have to pay for her too. And it's just tremendously expensive. So I think I'm going to have to use one of these. Oh, did I already open one? No. Ooh. Goodness, Scott got me these for Christmas off of Amazon. He said they don't want to come apart. I have so many tape runners, and I go through all of them, but I said that I wasn't going to buy any more until all these were gone. And Scott got me these for Christmas because they're cheap. And I told him and this is fine, but it's just a different kind. But the whole reason why Scott lost his job last time was because he fell asleep. He was a security guard, and he fell asleep watching the cameras. And that weekend, before he lost his job there, he was putting laminate flooring in our house. And he did it all in 2 days. and he was completely wiped out. He was sore because that's a really hard job to do by yourself. And I don't know why I'm not able to get this off. There we go. And he was exhausted, because physical labor is exhausting. So what we should have done that when he did that was like have him request off that next day. Scott is a person who never takes vacation days. Like, he very rarely takes vacation days. Does not never calls in sick, never takes vacation days. He just is one of these guys that like, no, I'll go, doesn't care if he's dying, sometimes like he has to be really sick in order not to go. And he went to work that day, and that's when that happened. And I felt awful about it because, like, I know it's because he was so exhausted. I think I'm going to put a yellow one there. He was so exhausted that day. There's a yellow one. Well, I'm almost done with this. I don't know how long this video has been for one thing. So we'll put that yellow dot. So that goes through jute. Now I need a couple over here. That's because you need that visual triangle. Here we go. And then I'll just kind of like talk about like our homeschool group and playing in the mud and how much fun they had. This was back in 2000. Well, if Ethan was 4, it would have been 2008. So I don't know if I have numbers here, or I may have to pull them out of somewhere else. I'll probably have to pull them out of my, I need to put my letter or my number stickers away anyway. But I'll put like 2008 here. But I think that turned out cute. It was pretty simple. It was a pretty simple page, to be honest. I don't know. Hopefully you can see it all. But so yeah, all this self-reflection and like, I think it's important to self-reflect. I think it's important to think about like situations that you go through and then like, what would I have done differently if I could go back and do it again? Or even like in this situation where I didn't even know really what I did wrong, because there was nothing that I did wrong that I knew of that would warrant that, conclusion. However, and it just didn't make sense, their reasoning for it all. But, there's always some truth to some degree, like when, like, there's always, it's never like all or nothing is what I'm trying to say, as far as like when something happens, and I understand that. So like I knew that I played some role in it, and a big portion of it was because I did not like my boss, and I started having a bad attitude toward her because she was being so unreasonable. And I even told her one time, like probably 2 weeks before I was fired, I was like, you're being unreasonable. These things that you're nitpicking about are not important. None of them are important. Like, this is just ridiculous. A little heart after their name on a cup, or like keeping track of how many times somebody answers the door when they're running up and downstairs to the bathroom and getting drinks and putting stuff away and getting stuff out and sweeping the entire floor. I mean, come on. It's like, some days, some people answer the door all the time. Sometimes people are taking kids downstairs to the bathroom all the time. It's never the same. Every day is different, and you're only here an hour, and you're just trying to nitpick this hour that you're here, you know, and your daughter can do no wrong. Like, your daughter is like perfect, supposedly, because she never got nitpicked at all. It was just me and the other girl, and me more so because I wouldn't take her crap. You know, the other girl just kind of like, I remember like several times this other girl who was only 19, she would come up to me and she's like, I don't know what I did wrong, but she just is, I don't know why she's being so mean to me. And I'm like, oh, she's just miserable. You know, and she was miserable all the time. You could see it on her face. Sometimes she'd sit at a table on her phone, like while we're working our butts off, and she's sitting at a table on her phone with a big scowl on her face. And it's like, you're nitpicking me over a drawing on a cup, or how many times that I answered the door while you're there during this hour, but you're not taking into consideration that I signed 20 kids out after you left. It's like, it's just petty. It's just petty nonsense. But, I mean, and that's all, like, I think that it was just because I wouldn't take her crap. And she wasn't used to it because she was used to dealing with like 19, like 25 and under kids or employees, not someone her age who actually was like, I'm not going to take this from you. You know, but it's whatever. It's neither here nor there. It doesn't make any difference whatsoever. And it was probably a good thing that this happened, because now I can focus on things that, you know, that I need to. It just burns me because, like, I had it all planned out that, like, this paid for my student loan, and, like, I didn't have to take any money out of my therapy money to pay that. And it's substantial. I mean, it's a substantial amount of money that I have to pay back each month. So it's like, oh, well, I have to grin and bear it. Do it anyway, you know. So, oh, well, I'll stop rattling on. But this is that page. So, hopefully I will see you next time. I don't know when I'll film again. I don't have to work tomorrow. Tomorrow's Tuesday, and I don't see clients on Tuesday right now. But I do have Esme and Corbin in the morning at 5 a.m. And I told Scott that since I don't have to work tomorrow, that he can sleep in. I'll let him sleep in, and I will get up with the kids. And I would like to be able to do some preschool with Esme, but I don't ever hardly get a chance. I mean, I play with her and read books to her and all that kind of stuff, but she is starting preschool in the fall, and I'd really like to get her going on some preschool stuff that I have. And but like with Corbin, and it's just too hard. Or like even over the weekend when I had Corbin and Jordan and Esme, there's no way that I could even work on with her alone. So, and we had, oh my gosh, that Friday night was a trip. Let me tell you, I was dealing with poop. Let's just say that. Poop and more poop and as much poop as you could ever imagine. It was wipes. You couldn't even use wipes. You had to use paper towels. It was that bad. It was just, I won't go into the gory details, but let's just say we had to throw the kid in the tub, and I had to wait for my husband to get home from work to help me, because like when I first saw it, I was frozen. I was like, I don't even know what to do with this. I was like, how I can't move you. I can't, like, I don't even know what to do here. I'm like, and thank God for Esme, because I'm like, Esme, get me the paper towels. Esme, get me a towel. Esme. And she was right on it. She was Very responsible little 3-year-old. Let's just say that. I could not have done it without her. And then Scott got home. Luckily, all this happened like a half an hour before Scott got off work. So he got home and he, helped me clean it all up, throw the kid in the tub, wash him up, get him all cleaned up, and throw the stuff in the laundry and shampoo the carpet because it got on the carpet. And holy moly, I hope to never see that again. I'm like, this is payback for when, like, okay, so not to be disgusting, but when I had norovirus, it was not pretty. I'll just tell you that. And my husband had to clean up a mess. Let's just say that on one occasion. Yeah. So Scott was like, this is payback for what I had to do for you. I'm like, oh, I can think of times when I've had to do stuff for you. So, when you've been married as long as I have, you've seen the ugly, the gross, the whatever it is. You've seen it all, so. But I thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.